Learning to draw is an experience that will help you problem solve and see the world in a completely new way. But where exactly should we start? In this video, I'll show you 5 easy exercises that will develop your coordination and give you confidence. Hey guys, so if you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Jay, I'm a digital designer from Sydney, Australia. I'm also a self-taught artist that's been posting my work online under the name Jaywalker Pictures since 2015. This is the start of a video series where I teach you how to draw from complete scratch. Each video builds on skills from the previous, so we're going to start out with basic drawing exercises, move through to more complex objects, observational drawing, perspective, shading, landscapes, and more. I'll be using Procreate and an iPad, but I want to stress that this is not just a software tutorial. By the end, you'll not only know how to use Procreate, but you'll also understand the fundamentals of drawing, so you can follow along with a pencil and paper too. So this is my first drawing ever. In preschool, we had an activity where they took our drawings and turned them into these melamine plates. And mine's a scene with a castle, and there's knights battling each other, there's dragons. And that was the joy of drawing for me. It was a way to explore and experience stories, worlds, and ideas. Now, this was a pretty cool memory, but I also remember worrying about not screwing it up. So they gave us these special markers and you couldn't erase them. So I remember trying really hard to keep my hand coordinated and wobble free and just not make any mistakes. And you might have felt this feeling too, whether you're working on a really complex piece and you don't want to screw it up, or you're trying to draw something and the strokes on the paper don't quite match what's in your mind. It can be frustrating and overwhelming, but don't be discouraged. Every drawing is built line by line, and I think that's the best way to think about drawing. It's about building and construction. So we start with basic lines and build up from there. Now, I'm pretty sure you can draw a simple line, but if you can't, grab your stylus or pencil because that's where we're going to start, the humble line. Okay, we're here in our Procreate gallery, and the first thing we want to do is create a new canvas. So go up here to our plus sign, and I'm going to make mine the screen size. It's 2732 by 2048. If yours is smaller than that, please go and create a custom canvas here and enter those dimensions in the width and height fields. But I'm just going to tap screen size, and now we're in. The first thing you want to do is go up here to our layers and hit background color and just double tap here to get a nice mid-tone gray. It's easier on the eyes, but there's also a drawing reason why I've done this, so I'll explain that to you guys later. Next, we want to choose our brush, so go up here to the brushes menu, go to the sketching section, and then choose the HB pencil. And this is a default Procreate brush, and I think it really highlights the abilities of the Apple Pencil, and it's just a really versatile brush that's great for sketching. I should note that I'm using the Apple Pencil 2nd generation, and you do need to use an Apple Pencil that supports pressure sensitivity to get the most out of this video series. So it's either this one or the Apple Pencil Pro. All right, now let's go and select our color. So double tap down here at the bottom and it'll give us a pure black. And make sure your size is set to 100% and your opacity is set to 100%. Now the first thing I'm going to do is show you 3 types of line. So if I just draw a line like this, that's what I call a wrist line. So I'm using my fingers and my wrist to generate that stroke. Next, we have a forearm stroke. So just hold your fingers still and your wrist still and just use the forearm to draw that. And the final line type is if you held everything steady and just use your shoulder to draw the line. Now, most likely you'll be using wrist lines and forearm lines, not so much shoulder lines. They're more useful for large canvases, but we're just on a small iPad here, so that's not going to be something we use so much. But try to get used to using wrist and forearm lines and try keeping them steady. So I'm just going to draw a couple of lines here. These are my wrist lines, and I feel like they're pretty straight because I've developed a bit of coordination over the years. Try some horizontal lines as well. Here I'm using more of my forearm because drawing with my wrists like this is a bit more wobbly. Next, I want you to understand kind of the tilt and angle of this pen. So if I draw more perpendicular to the tablet, it looks like this, and I call this a high angle stroke. And if I draw more low to the surface of the tablet, it looks like this. And this is what I call a low angle stroke. And try going from a high angle stroke to a low angle stroke. So something like this, it's high angle, and then we're going to get lower down, then come back up again, and try to feel that tilt in the Apple Pencil. The next line type we're going to draw is curves. So I just start drawing some curves here. Try some low angle curves and try the other way. So like so, and low angles. Try different orientations. and also different angles. So some low angle strokes like so. And we're going to do some waves as well. So let's do a small one. And just some more experiments and wigglies. Just really let yourself go loose. Okay, and the last line type we're going to practice is point-to-point lines. So you're going to use this quite often in future drawings. So you draw a point and connect them together. So notice how I'm rotating my wrist around and connecting that up. And then, for example, for a vertical line, I don't need to rotate my wrist around. That's more natural for me. If I did this angle, I'm rotating again more this way. Just try practicing getting a straight line. Okay, and we can do multiple points. So I can do a zigzag like so. So again, rotate your wrist and your forearm to get the optimal angle. Then we can do point to point like so. So imagine something like this. And we can do point to point curves. So if I want to kind of use the points as a guidepost for my curves, you could do something like this. And it's just really helpful. Okay, let's move on to the next exercise. Before I do, I want to show you a feature in Procreate that's going to make this process a little bit easier. So what I want you to do is go up to the wrench icon, and I'm going to turn on Page Assist. And you can see this UI that has appeared down here now. And what you can do now is hit the New Page button, and what that does is it creates a new page. And that's actually a new layer that's been created. And it's just a bit easier than, say, if we don't have the Page Assist on, every time we jump between layers, we have to turn those layers on and off. But now we can just jump between layers, and Procreate will manage the turning on and off of those layers for us. So it's kind of like a sketchbook. All right, let's start with drawing a circle. And for this, try to use more of your shoulder and forearm and not so much of your wrist. So like so. And for me personally, I find it gives me more control. Like if I draw a wrist circle, I find it hard to link up the two edges of my circle. But when I draw with my forearm or shoulder, it's a bit more steady and more accurate. So just practice small circles, medium circles. Just get used to the feeling of the pencil. Try some low angle circles. Next, we're going to do triangles. So here is my triangle using my wrist and not really any guidelines or anything like that. But you can also use the point-to-point method. So this is a bit easier. You just have to focus on connecting the dots. You can do a right angle triangle. And also try triangles that are in different orientations. So upside down. I'm going to try a low angle stroke triangle. So angling my Apple Pencil and just feeling how soft and buttery that brush is. Next, let's do some squares. So I'm pretty sure everyone knows how to draw a square, but let's use the point-to-point method just to make it a little neater. You can draw some rectangles, some thin rectangles, oblongs. Don't forget the low angle stroke. I put one behind. And the final shape we're going to do is ovals. So draw an oval like this, and I find using my shoulder is a bit easier. Try different angles. And also low angle brush strokes. Okay, so I know that this is all really simple, and before you get impatient, just remember that this is all about warming up. It's about building our coordination, and it's also about building drawing skills from scratch. So each skill builds up to the next skill. So lines enabled us to draw shapes, and shapes are now going to enable us to draw 3D objects. Okay, so let's create a new page. And the first thing I want you to do is to draw a square. And I'm going to draw a square right here. Use our point-to-point method. And then we're going to draw another square right behind it. So use our point-to-point method and have it overlap like this. And now we're going to connect up these points here. And we've got a cube. Next, let's draw another cube. So point to point. But this time, I want you to put the second square pretty low down. So maybe have it right about here. And you can see how the positioning of the second square affects kind of the perspective and shape of the object. So we can even do some really dramatic things. So we can have like a small square here, and then you could have a big square here. And then if you connect up these sides, it creates a really interesting object. We can also try something like this. So have a small square in front, then a big one at the back. Connect them up. Next, I'm going to do the same, but this time with oblongs, so rectangles. Let me draw a rectangle here, kind of a long one, connect it up, and then another one here. Connect it up. And this one is kind of like a book. You can do a long shape like this. We can even try a rotated oblong. That one's a little tricky, but yeah, you get the idea. It's kind of coming along. Now let's try triangles. So I'm going to put this here like that. And then I'm going to draw another triangle, connect it up. And we've created a triangular prism, or a Toblerone, as I like to call them. I guess it looks like a tent as well. Let's try a thin right angle triangle. And let's try a triangle like this. And then another one here like this. Connect it up. Yeah, that's a really dramatic angle. Very cool. All right, next we're going to draw cones. So we're going to start out with an oval. So just draw an oval like that and put a center point here, and then connect the sides of the oval to that center point. And you can try drawing a cone in a different orientation as well. This is pretty simple. You probably wouldn't need to always draw that center point. You can just draw it by intuition. You can also try really tall cones, like so, and also really flat cones. So if I make the top really low, kind of like that. Next, let's draw some cylinders. So again, we're going to go with our oval and then draw our second oval and connect them up like that. And we can also use circles. So if I do a circle here and then do a circle like this and then connect them up, it becomes a cylinder. Just add a more dramatic angle. Let's try a different angle again. Put them further apart. All right, and for the last object, I want you to draw like a jelly bean shape. So draw something like this. Just some random blobs. And what I want you to do is look for like the spine through this blob. So for example, the spine here might be like this. It kind of looks like a computer mouse. We can put a spine here. Here we can have a spine like this, and here like this. And that's just to indicate the contour, and to emphasize that I want you to add some contour lines. So kind of like so. And you notice as I go across this image, the contour lines get straight as I get to this point. And then as I move over the top of that peak, I turn my curves outwards like so. So try to visualize where those contours are and follow it along. This is using our curve stroke from earlier. So developing that confidence in your curved strokes will really help for this part. Okay guys, we've been drawing a while, so make sure to take a break, do some stretching, or just grab a drink. So far we've covered lines, shapes, and simple 3D objects, but our next exercise will open up more possibilities as we learn to combine objects. Okay, so let's create a new page. And I'm just going to do 2 examples. So let's draw a rectangle, something like this. And then another rectangle about here. And connect it up. Make our 3D object. And now I'm going to place a point here and connect these 2 points up like that. And that's going to create a triangle. And then we're going to draw another point here and connect up here. And then we're going to connect these 2 points. And now we have the beginnings of a house. So there's our triangular prism on top, and there's our oblong or cube on the bottom. Pretty simple, but you get the idea. We're starting to combine objects, and it's allowing us to draw more sophisticated things. Okay, let's do something a bit more complicated. So what we're going to do is draw an oval, and then draw another oval. I'm going to make a cylinder. So just connect these up. Now I want you to draw another oval inside. Maybe like so, maybe like so, and try to keep them the same height. Okay, and then now we're going to draw a curved line kind of like this. Okay, and then connect that up. So we've got a cylinder within a cylinder, and this is going to become like a glass of water or something like that. Okay, so now I'm going to add a handle. So let's just draw a rectangle here. And it looks a bit weird, like how rectangular this is. So what we're going to do is lightly draw a circle here, 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 and here. And that's going to give us the guidelines to draw these curved edges. So now we're going to kind of finalize these lines and focus on that curve here. Okay, and I'm just going to clean up this a bit. And I'm going to draw one more oval inside of here. So it's going to be hard to draw, but I'm just trying to follow that line around. And let me erase these circles. Okay, that's pretty cool. If you're enjoying this video so far, it's part of a series that's going to be available for free on YouTube. But if you want to support, please consider joining my Patreon. Each video in this series will have a bonus Patreon video where we apply what we've learned to a practical tutorial. You'll also get access to my Procreate resources such as files, palettes, and brushes, and you get access to the Discord community. So you can kind of think of it like joining an art class per month, plus you're supporting the channel and independent art. Check it out at patreon.com/JayWalkerPictures, and I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Okay, so let's create a new page, and I want to show you some basic shading techniques, as well as give you kind of the anatomy of a shadow, so you can apply this to any object that you want to draw. So the first technique is a low angle fade. Remember our low angle strokes with the Apple Pencil like so. We're going to use this to fade. So put your pencil at an angle and kind of run it along the tablet like so. And as you go across, get lighter and lighter and fade out. You can also do this vertically like so. And just practice with different angles. I'm not picking my pen off the tablet, I'm just running it along and maintaining one continuous stroke. The next technique is the same thing, but just using a high angle stroke. So instead of being low down, we're going to lift more perpendicular like so, and we're going to do a continuous stroke like so and get lighter as you come out. And we can try it at different angles as well. And another angle. And just practice getting lighter as you come outwards. Now the last technique is a variation on this, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a high angle stroke, but we're not going to do one continuous stroke. We're going to do multiple individual strokes. So here you can see I'm drawing every single stroke and I'm getting lighter as I come out. And this is basically the foundations for cross hatching. And it requires a bit more coordination, but it gives a really nice texture and finish. Next, let's draw a circle. Okay, and we're going to establish a light source, which is going to be like from this direction. I'm going to have it kind of coming from a bit to the front. So I'm going to draw an oval here and kind of use that to delineate a cone and the angle of the light. All right, so that's the first component of shading, the light source. The second component is the midtone. So we just wanted to use a low angle stroke and keep it pretty even across the entire shape. Like so. Now we want to hit the core shadow, and you imagine like the core shadow is kind of like this point. So if we do like a spine or a contour line through here, that's where the core shadow will be. So we're just going to use a vertical low angle stroke and just shade it like so. And try to focus our pressure in these lower portions and then get lighter as we come up. And you'll notice I haven't shaded all the way to the edge of this shape because I want some of this reflected bounce light to come up. Now we're going to put in a cast shadow, and I'm just kind of roughly estimating it kind of be like this. Shade it in like this and get lighter as we come further away from the object. And then when we're right down here, it's like super dark. Just make sure it fades out. And finally, we want to add a highlight. And so I'm going to go here and select my white color. And this relates back to why we chose a mid-tone gray for the canvas. Now, when we go to do our highlight, it really pops out with white. So I'm just going to do something like this and then do a bit of a low angle shade, just blend it in. Okay, let's do a cube. So I'm going to go like so. This is a bit too high up, so I'm going to bring it down a bit so it looks like it's sitting right next to the sphere. And let's hit it with a midtone. So a low angle stroke, just shade it evenly. And because this is a cube, it's going to be a bit more distinct in terms of the planes of the cube. So this plane will be the darkest, this one will be the second darkest, and this will be the lightest. So I'm going to start with the darkest, and I'm going to use a vertical. I'm not using a fully low angle hatch, but I'm also not using a perpendicular hatch either. I'm kind of in between. But I do want to see that vertical stroke. Okay, and I'm going to do the same for this side. Another vertical stroke, but this time not as dark. I'm trying to keep it more lighter and more even. Okay, and now we're going to put in our cast shadow. Draw a straight line like this. And then I'm going to use a low angle shade. Have it darker closer to the object and then get lighter as we go out. Here I'm using a bit of a higher angle fade hatch. Okay, let's do a cone. And connect it up to the top. Hit it with a midtone. And then the core shadow would be kind of around about here. And our cast shadow will be something like this. For the last drawing, I drew and shaded our cup from before. The video was getting way too long, so I didn't narrate the process, but I think by now you get the idea. I really believe that with all these skills, you can draw almost anything, you just need to apply your imagination. Which, by the way, is what I do over on my Patreon. There's a video there where I apply all these skills in a practical scenario, and it's an easy step-by-step tutorial that you can follow yourself. Check it out at patreon.com/jaywalkerpictures, and I really appreciate your support. Thanks, guys. Okay, so I know for some of you guys this is all still too simple, and if you've mastered it already, you might want to consider checking out the next video where we dive into more complex objects, and this really opens up your possibilities when drawing. It'll be the next video in this playlist, and I hope to see you there.